What's up, guys? This is Artem Wright from Tagged Outdoors Media. Today I'm going to show you guys a process of how to cape a deer around the face and the head region there. This process will be a little bit different in the field just because you don't have, a tool such as a sawhorse where you can kind of set it on, but you can find something that can mimic it. And overall it'll be a lot of the same process. Just the main thing I'm trying to get out to you guys here today is knowing where to cut and how to cut. So hopefully this helps you guys out, and when you're in the field you need to cape a deer or cape any animal for that regard, the process will be overly similar. So just take some notes and hopefully this helps you guys out.
Better off sipping on a ice cold can, doing 12-ounce curls, blue mountains in my hand. If it's a long neck, buddy, I want it. 30 rag gone like them Goodyear tires. I'm better off sitting in the same dive bar, drinking all damn night, soaking this broke heart. So cheers to your tail lights in the rearview mirror. I'm better off with a big I'm better off with a big
So starting out, before you get to caping, you got to take some measurements, one of which is going to be the very corner of the eye right here to the very tip of the nose. It's a measurement they need for their molds. That's 7.5. I'm gonna go ahead and double check myself. Yep, 7.5. And then the other ones you will need are a measurement right behind the antlers here, which is 21, 2 inches down. Just 21, and then 4 inches down, which will be more generally, and that is 24. So you're going to do those same measurements. So for this process, what I have is my dad's 7-point that he shot when we doubled up. This is the full cape. Let's say the animal is totally quartered out, and this is what you have. If you have it hung up, you can actually cut the cape or the hide here while it's still up. But essentially what a taxidermist would need is you don't need the full body of it. Really, the front legs are right here. So what I'm gonna do is I give them a little extra, but they don't need the whole thing. So I'm gonna come right down here, probably, let's see what that is. I'd say 8 or 9 inches past those front legs. And I'm going to cut that hide as straight as I can, all the way through right here like that. And then I can begin working on everything else, and it'll make the process a lot easier for you guys. So as you can see here, the full hide went all the way back to here. I made my cut, and it may not look like a lot, but this is going to be more than what they need for your standard shoulder mount. So now we got the deer up on the sawhorse. I put his head in the middle. What we're going to do here next is make a 7 cut. That's the one that I'm a little more familiar with. You can check with your taxidermist. Some of them like the V cut, where they come back from both of these antlers here and come down. But I think a 7 cut is better because it's one seamless stitch, which is gonna come here down. You never wanna cut against the hairs because you're gonna split those hairs. So I'm gonna make an incision right back here in the base of the neck. I'm gonna come up with a slight angle but a straight line to the bottom of this pedicle right here. On that antler base, right underneath it, make sure that cut's good. And once that's cut, I'm going to cut right across to the other one. So hopefully you'll be able to see this pretty good. It's kind of tough with the angle of everything. But essentially what I'm gonna do is the meat and the neck roast is cut off right here. So I'm gonna just make that incision in the hide right there. I made a nice little hole, and then I'm going to just basically work that hide right up. These knives here, I'm a really big fan. They are the Outdoor Edge with the replaceable scalpels. They will work for this process pretty much entirely. With my old knives, I would use a couple different knives to have to do this, but now I can cut through this pretty good in comparison to the other knives. I'm gonna need to replace my scalpel blade here to make this cut a little easier. I've done quite a few of these, so I'm gonna take a break a second, replace that blade. Now that our blade's replaced, this should cut a lot nicer. So I'm gonna keep following that same process I was doing. At this point, I'm gonna get my little angle towards the base. Yeah, it's a difference what a sharp knife makes, isn't it? Let's see. I'll try to slide this more for you guys. Basically, I'm making that cut all the way right to here, the very base of this pedicle, which you'll see it split. There's the meat, and then I'm just working that right up the bottom of that pedicle, making sure it's all split nice. And as soon as there's no hair between the meat and the pedicle, there should be a nice split, and there it is. So that's cut across. Now I'm going to use my flathead screwdriver and just kind of work that open a little bit. Which, let's see, we got one right here. I'm running a little slower because I'm trying to make sure I can see what you guys can see. But I'm essentially just going to get right in there off the base of that pedicle and just work that back. Just like that. And I'm going to do that around the entire antler here eventually. And the hide is stronger than you'd think. So it's opened up. I'm going to take this knife and follow the very top here and make a cut, keeping my blade up right across to this pedicle as well. I'm gonna do my best so you guys can see it, but again, no promises. I use the antler as leverage because these can be tricky, to say the least, getting around those antlers. Open it up a little bit. Alright, so I came underneath the antler here and that worked a little bit more in my favor. And it's just about there, so come back over top. Separating from the skull the best that I can. And that is that. So now you're ready for the full screwdriver to get all the way around both of these pedicles. So a little wider screwdriver generally will do better for you in this process, which I'm gonna come right here, get right to the base of that pedicle and just slowly. This becomes one of the tedious processes of this. It's nothing you really want to rush through. especially, you know, you're all excited, you've shot a buck you want to mount. It's a fun process, but it's a tedious process, and it could save you time and money in the long run if you do it right. So you can see how that's just peeling off pretty nicely on this one. Actually, this little angle back here is generally the one that'll give you a little difficulty. It's hard to get that proper leverage. There we go. And it's, as long as you have a good hide, it's not slipping or anything in that regard. Hides are pretty sturdy, and it's very difficult to Okay, so we've worked open around these pedicles. We've made our 7 cut. Now, basically we're gonna fan this cape by taking all this excess and working it right down to separate it from the meat. You're doing that so that you can work on that hide and have a lot more room to work through everything. And I'm getting just to this cartilage around the ears because our next cut is going to be the ears. Cut a little out deep, so I'm just putting some meat back in so I don't have to deal with it. Open it up from these pedicles. Let's see what you can see. All right. Let's try zooming in. And right here, you'll feel it, and you can see that darker spot is right where this ear will meet right there. So what I'm gonna do, make sure all this is pulled apart where I want it, and I'm gonna cut right flush with that body. You can see that white is more of a fatty substance. I'll put a little light on so you can see it better. I'm gonna cut right through, and right here, what I just cut, is the eardrum, that little white hole. And we're going, now that we're through that, we can go back to working on our meat. You want to be careful not to go too far up this way, because the back of the eyes are right here, and that's a different cut. You don't want to cut into those because it's really hard to repair for a taxidermist. So I'm going to do this other ear and move on to the next step. So he's opened up on both ears. As a comparison, so you can see a little bit, so as a buddy's deer, we've opened up around these pedicles here and taken the ears off back here. The eye socket right here is what I was saying you need to worry about not cutting too far forward, because when we get right up there, which we're going to do here in a minute after we take the hide off the top, is you're going to reach your finger in through the eye, not around this bone, but it's going to come through this eye, and put your finger right to the back here, so that when you cut, you can cut flush with this bone that's all right here, working it down, stopping here, so that you're overly careful with this little indent. That's that tear duct. It's really easy to cut through if you're not paying attention, and you're going to need some finesse to just work really slowly through that as you're pulling that hide apart. Constantly being careful of where my cuts are. And you can see a lot of the time the blade is doing most of the work rather than me. But we still have all of this meat to the back, So we're gonna fan that right off. Sorry about the sniffles, guys. It's pretty chilly out here. So I'm working that right off that meat. So the hide has to be fleshed anyway, so if you have meat still on it, it's not that big of a deal. Just be careful when you're doing that cut that you're not cutting right into the hide. I'm putting very minimal pressure on my blade here as I'm making these cuts. I'm gonna do the same thing on this other side. Mark that down. So the reason we're doing this is we're gonna invert this cape, and it's gonna give you a lot more working space. It's up. We can flip him back around. I'm gonna throw that hide through that saw so I know right where it's at. And now we've worked it. I want this a little bit more open for me personally, because I like to have the space to work with. So just fan that back out. And now you can tell we're getting close to the back of that eye. So what I'm gonna do here, now that I know I'm getting close, is keep all these eyelashes out. Reach that finger right in. That socket's gonna stop you. But you get it right in there. And slowly start making your cuts. Make sure you guys can see. I'm right at that eye. So I'm gonna go right there and slowly follow that bone down. You can see I'm moving this, I'm moving it more for the video. I'm just gonna open this side up a little bit more so that I can pull that hide back and you guys can see better. So I want this to go as smoothly as possible for you guys. I know that when I did my first one, I was very anxious, more so worried about messing up than doing it right. Cut, following that bone. And then you pop through, it's just to speed up the process. You'll see get it open for you. See my finger right there. Cutting the back of that eye. Eye fat, I should say. And around this front. Zoom out. Move these cheeks a little bit. You're able to see in that hole, and you can see my other finger right there is the back of his eye. So you're gonna keep that cut going right down, ensuring that you do not cut the front of his eye. And when we get to that point, we're gonna stop, because like I mentioned before, that tear duct begins right there. So that's it. I'm gonna flip him around, do the other eye, and then we'll go to the tear ducts next. So we got his eyes opened up. We're right here at the tear duct, which you can see that little white line generally connects it. And I'm just gonna feather the very tip of my knife while putting a light pressure on the hide, pulling away from the eye as I make those little cuts right there. It's a nice thing to know about caping these deer, because there's some deer that I've had for years where I may not have financially been in a standpoint to get mounted, but a deer may have the same sizes or similarities to where I can use this cape on a different deer's rack. And I can just keep this in the freezer if I ever decide that I want to or need to use it on a different one, or if you're hunting warm weather areas and your cape spoils, it's nice to have one, and then the taxidermist doesn't need to spend time trying to locate another one or purchasing one. But that's generally about as far as you need to go when it comes to the tear duct. You can see that little low gap right there is pretty well dug out. There's no cuts in the hide. The back of the eye looks good. I'm gonna go just a little bit further than you would generally need to. And like I said, this is one of the things that's part of a tedious process. This is one that you don't necessarily want to mess up. So there we go. I'm at the front of the tear duct for sure now, because the slope of that little divot has stopped, and now I'm meeting the skull. So I'm gonna stop right there, do the other side, and then we'll flip it around and I'll show you the next step. So now we've gotten both those eyes open. You can see that you're getting close. A little bit of excitement setting in. What I like to do here is I'm going to put that cape back over his face, flip him around here, and work on these gums, doing the bottom jaw first, because when we get down to that, I'm gonna invert it, which will make the top jaw a lot easier. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna make a little cut following the teeth right at that jawline, separating the meat right from the very base of his jaw. You'll know when you cut far enough because the white will start to appear from the jawline. And I cut down in here a little bit just to try to give myself a little bit more leniency. If you're not comfortable with it, when you flip it around, you can do it a little bit more to where you can see it better. But that cut right apart there. I'm gonna follow that line and do the same thing all the way around to the other side here. So he's upside down here. I'm gonna keep working that hide off of the bottom jaw just a little bit until I feel comfortable. I'm gonna take that deer, flip him sideways. So I'm trying to make sure you guys can see everything here. So there's the snout. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna reach this. I use my middle finger to get as far as I can. As far as I can back in there. You can kind of see my finger there. And flip that hide back over and get right to the meat of those cheeks. I'm gonna get right to the back and cut that flush. And then that jawline opens up. You can kind of see that. So I'm gonna take my blade and come up the gum line here like I was doing when he was faced the other way to pull that meat right off that bottom jaw. And that'll open up nice. Now that both sides of his jaws are opened up on the inside, raise that up just a little bit more. What we're gonna do is keep working this bottom jaw like we were originally, knowing that there's no skin attached elsewhere now. In that bottom jaw, I mean. Just keeping that pressure. Following the bone, not cutting the hide. I like to grab it from the inside there. Almost got it to where we met from the front. Now that that's come apart, all I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull that hide until it comes right out. And that is that inversion I was talking about. Now you can do the top jaw, ensuring that you don't leave any meat up here and you have that gum line cut down real nice. So I'm gonna come right on the inside of this serration, following the roof of his mouth. Being careful not to cut that. Coming right down to the bone. So it splits nicely. And the same thing we did on the bottom, we're gonna do on the top. And come right through. Apparently, almost lose the deer. That was spooky. You can still see it, yeah. Being extra careful around that nose. Following that all the way around. That finesse. Careful when you're in the front, you don't cut too far inward there because that cartilage of that nose is not ready to come just yet. And you don't want to cut into his nose at all. It's another one of those spots you just got to be careful. Really, you need to be careful on most of it, but It's another one of those concentrated areas that makes a bigger difference. And everything that I'm doing on this side, I've already done on the other side, which is why I'm just making those cuts over here. At that point, he's pretty good. We can flip it over, get that centered right, and I can just work this where I know I've already made my jawline cuts. Same thing on both sides. And I'm just fanning back that hide now. And at this point, you can start
sweet tea, oh, but that's just me. That's just me.
And there it is. So at this point, we've gotten this deer caped out. He's all set up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these measurements. I do the same ones with the hide on as I do the hide off. The first one, get underneath. A soft tape measure does the best, but I put it right behind the antlers. So that's 18. I'm gonna go 2 inches down. 16. And I'm also gonna do one 4 inches down. And if you feel the need to use a tape measure to go to the exact distances, feel free, but it's more of a rough estimate, 18 and a half. And those are measurements you're gonna need for your taxidermist so he can order the proper form. So he is done being cut. I'm gonna take this cape and going to invert it again. And now the cape is done. So we can set that cape down, get your ears up. I like to stay a little organized with it, so I'm gonna try to fan it out to make it look pretty. It makes the rolling process just a little bit easier. I'm gonna pin his ears and his nose right in. Curl that right forward. And then I can put it in a bag and stick it in the freezer. So hopefully this helps you guys out and you'll be able to do it on your own next time. Other than that, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more stuff. If you like these tips and you want to know anything, drop some stuff in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. Don't forget to send and submit your photos with the hashtag #TaggedOutdoors as well. And we'll do our best to get posted with them. Hopefully this helps. Stay safe out there, guys.
Damn football's in the SEC, no doubt.